quite delayed in getting this race going. 17.5 minutes remaining in the qualifying session. The weather is going to be a wet start to this race, leading through into dry conditions, so it is going to be a weather dynamic race. So at the very least, if we can get a qualifying session finished for you, the race will be very exciting, and we hope to have an absolute scorcher of a race after all of these delays.
Yeah, the game owes us one. No, this is a good race.
First driver out of the pit lane here is going to be Yoda. The entire grid springing to life there instantaneously. Yoda, the first driver out, wanting to get that lap in as quickly as he could. So, of course, the issue has been the session starts off, the drivers get out, and then things deteriorate as the session goes on. Now I am hosting things, so hopefully we'll have a clear picture and maybe a little bit more stability is the hope, of course. I'm also streaming, so you never know what happens there. But it's Yoda in that Williams right now. He's a reserve driver for the club division today. We've got 19 drivers on this grid. Max Inkster was set to reserve in the Ferrari this evening, but unfortunately connection issues are going to keep him out of this race. And this entire grid is currently out as Yoda, the first driver to start a flying lap here down into turn 1, not even utilizing third gear. He's keeping it in fourth and coasting through. Now coming into this very harsh banking section, this left-hand banking.
Yeah, and he's proceeding now towards that long right-hander at turn 7 that ends the first sector. We've already seen a couple of people make a few mistakes through the exit of that corner. So, fingers crossed, you can see one of the Alpha Tauris there letting him pass. As he proceeds around the left-hander onto the straight here. One of 2 DRS zones on this track.
Yes, unfortunately, Unicorn very quiet in the lobby at the moment due to the audio of the game having an unbelievably irritating issue.
So Remco Van Putten, he's set at 108.8, beats Yoda's time by 4/10. Shenjay, he beats it as well at 108.9 from the Alfa Romeo, freeway at 109 flat.
Things are getting very, very tight in this grid already here. It's already only a second to P10 right now on this grid. And we're only a third of the way through. Well, these drivers have had a very long qualifying today. They've had a good half hour of qualifying today.
I bet they're itching to finally get underway here in a race environment. You know, they don't want to be spending half an hour, 45 minutes in qualifying. Alex Bitter, he's just set the fastest lap of the session in 108.6. Beating Nigel's best time, which was provisional pole, which was a 108.7.
So a few drivers to look out for. Of course, those top 3, Alex Bitto, Nigel, and Remco Van Putten, all participants in the MRL Tier 1 division, and that was your podium yesterday in MRL Tier 1. Of course, Remco Van Putten, Alex Bitto, and Nigel, all full-time drivers in CFR before migrating over to MRL. So as we continue this championship. They are the three to be looking at. Of course, Remco Van Putten in the Red Bull today, different from yesterday where he was driving the Renault, but Remco Van Putten in the Red Bull. And home Grand Prix for him, not securing victory here yesterday. However, another crack at it today in MRL Club Division, so perhaps the Dutchman can take a win around home.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit different for the drivers when it is their home Grand Prix. Because obviously you want to do well when it's your home turf. And also, we've already said it previously, but if you just tune in, we are missing our current driver standings leader in ZZ9. He's being replaced by Henners this evening in the Mercedes.
Another driver we're missing is, of course, the very fast Red Bull of Ben the Bear.
Indeed, he's being replaced by Jack S. today in that second Red Bull.
That is correct. As another round of drivers takes us out of that pit lane, it's Astrodite, who I believe is the first driver that's going to be starting a flyer, unless, of course, that is Freeware ahead of him, and it is. So Freeware currently on an out lap. We'll ride along with the German as he crosses the line to begin his second flyer of the session. 11 minutes to go on the timer.
And we've got, what's that about? 2.6 seconds from pole to 19th, so a fairly tight grid, as always here on Zandvoort. Again, the second and last new track on the calendar for 2020. Everything else we've seen before in F1 2019. As Astrodite now starts his second flying lap of the session, as we also approach that 10-minute mark as well.
Freeware right now crossing into Sector 3, about to finish his lap. He'll be the first to cross of the drivers setting new times here. Oh, and he's invalidated coming into that last stadium section almost. So he will not be able to improve on his current time. Astrodite, however, will.
Yeah, in the Racing Point, Astrodite onto the DRS straight, coming down towards the final sector into this sort of 90-degree right-hander into this U-shaped left-hander. And like you were saying, you can invalidate on that outside curve if you take just too much of it. And again, coming into the banked right-hander as well, you can invalidate there if you're not careful. And obviously what would be an invalidation in qualifying, as Astrodite improves with a 109.6.
And it's the Dutchman. Original pole, a 108.67 when he crosses the line in the Red Bull, and a very nice time from him. But Nigel snatches that up with a 108.459, and he was very rapid around here yesterday, as were, of course, Van Putten and Biddo, battling throughout the entirety of the race, and I'm very keen on seeing that once again. It's going to be a very high-intensity drive for all three of them, I can only imagine. And Shenjie, on an out lap right now, is going to be looking to have a better qualifying session, because he qualified closer to the rear of that top 10, which isn't somewhere you'd be used to seeing Shenjie. But now in the Alfa Romeo, beginning a flying lap here to improve on the 108.987.
Yeah, and Alex Biddo, he's just crossed the line. He's at a 108.6 in the Ferrari, just ahead of Remco Van Putten, knocking him off of the front row for now. But we are only 10 minutes into this short 18-minute qualifying session, so still enough time for Remco Van Putten to reinstate his Red Bull at the front of this grid.
Fraser, the 108.787, putting himself into the second row. Shenjie now in P5, looking to improve that position. Crossing that split into Sector 3 now. He is up a tenth at the moment He needs exactly 2/10 to beat out P4. And there is Fraser, slow ahead.
Yeah, he should pull off into the pit lane. So there goes the Mercedes.
Oh, and he misses it by 0.002 of a second. Look at the difference between those two right now. You see Shenjie, that 108.788. Fraser did it a millisecond quicker, a 108.787. And that's what we like to see on the timing tower, is pace like that. Super tight freeware on an outlap now. He's a 109 flat, looking to improve on that. He's on an outlap, and we'll jump on with him soon. Jack S., he improved his time in the Red Bull from last on this grid up into P11, so he'll be happy about that. Money in the Alfa Romeo flying at the moment, as he has just begun.
Yeah, freeware as well. He's just about to start his lap in that AlphaTauri down towards turn 1. As the Alfa Romeo comes around the final corner. I'm seeing a 109.6, just 0.009 of a second behind Astrodite. He's coming to the pits lane though, so no improvement for him at the moment.
Money is rounding that final banking now, that super steep banking into the pit lane. And my screen, I don't know if we're delayed again. We have 5.5 minutes remaining. Wavy on a flyer, looking a little shaky coming out of that first banking section. Looks like there's a driver off.
I think Freeway might have got caught in traffic on his lap. He's dived back into the pits for some fresh tyres, I would assume. Or he might have just caught too many cars in that third sector. And that's caused him to abort. He was half a tenth down on his previous time. Meanwhile, Alex Biddo currently in second place at 108.6. He is flying for probably the last time this evening. He might have time for one more if he can get round fairly quickly. His rival at the top, Nigel, he's started to fly as well in the Renault. Alex Biddo now on the DRS straight, barreling down towards that tight right-hander. Very aggressive on the curving, but he keeps it valid as he approaches the final two corners now. As the Mercedes of Hennes, he comes into the pits ahead of the Ferrari. But it is a 108.4 from Alex Biddo, which puts him just 1/100th of a second ahead of Nigel, who, like I said, is once again out on a flying lap.
Very quick from the Spaniard, setting himself out in front there. Now it's Nigel aborting now on his lap. Not entirely sure what happened with him.
Remco Van Putten as well, he's invalidated his lap time. So as we get to the closing stages of qualifying here, there are a few opportunities for drivers who may be a little bit further down than they would like at this moment in time, as Fraser comes into the final sector in the Mercedes, a little bit shaky out of the left-hander, but as he rounds the bank, taking a lot of the outside curving there. But he is going to finish the lap, and he's going to set a 108.5, putting him up to third place there. So that knocks Remco Van Putten down a spot.
The Dutchman not going to be pleased with that. He is on another flyer, though, burning that gas tank dry. You can see he's got that fuel light on and coming through this long left into this DRS straight. He needs 2/10 and change.
Okay, well, he is flying currently 16th, so he's going to want to improve upon his lap time. He's just come around the final corner, but he's into the pits, and with just 2 minutes remaining in qualifying, it's unlikely he's going to have time for another flyer. His teammate Astrodite, he has just started another flyer as well. A 109.6 is his current best, and there's a lot of tight times down there. There's 4 people on a 109.6 at the moment. Both Money and Astrolite though, down there, they're both on flyers. Money will be first to cross the line. It does look like he's aborted though. No ERS usage from that Alfa Romeo. That could mean that Astrolite is safe from here at the moment, and indeed he has come into the pit lane.
Astrodate, another driver who I saw drive around here yesterday in the Tier 1 action, and he had a very stellar performance in defense of some pretty quick guys throughout the majority of the race. He went for a very long stint on the medium compound tires and got a fortunate safety car allowing him to come in for some different tires. It was just the wrong set. He wanted the softs, and unfortunately his engineer decided to give him the hards. And he is not going to be improving here in this session, I don't believe. So it's going to be Henners now on a flyer, sitting in ZZ9's cockpit today. Currently P8, that 109.2. Big shoes to fill, of course, for the Englishman. Oh, and he has now spun it. Oh, and that's a big crash. That's a major portion of that front wing off, and that is going to be the Haas of Thielman Sever moving on by on a outlap presently. And that is a big crash for him.
Yeah, Henry's lucky that he didn't damage that front wheel and retire the car there. That was a huge slide from him in the Mercedes.
Now, the typical qualifying desync that we are more accustomed to than the issues we've been dealing with today is giving drivers another opportunity perhaps to set some additional laps here. As things have ticked down on our end, it looks like Alex Bitto has begun a new flyer to further improve on that 108.4.
Similarly, Nigel's done the same as well, so the front row of this grid not decided yet, as we are in the last, well, with qualifying's over, we've just got 2 minutes and a half on the countdown clock before we roll on over into the race.
Another driver who's going to benefit from this additional time, of course, is going to be Freeware. As he's rounding that banking now. He's out of ERS deployment though. Is he going to finish the lap? He's going to lose time on that straight. He's not going. Oh, and he does improve by almost 4/10. I thought for sure that lack of battery would have cost him a good chunk of time there coming out of that final banking. But no, he out-qualifies Shenjie for what I believe is the 4th consecutive time in their racing together, and by a very small margin at that.
I was just at a 108.3 in the Renault. Also, while I was on board with him, there was a McLaren facing the wrong way in the 3rd sector. And Alex Bitter has failed to beat Nigel at the moment, so it is Nigel at the front of this grid at the moment. Shenjie's aborted. Kenny Yoda and then Williams.
Now, one thing I can say is if you are just tuning into this, this is the first time MRL on a Friday streaming racing action. It is, of course, MRL Club Division, Round 5. Joining me is Unicorn. A little bit of a sound bug going on with Unicorn right now. Hopefully it will sort itself out. But, of course, we are about to jump into a absolute scorcher of a race because we are kicking things off here around Zandvoort with the wet. And it's going to progress, of course, into dry racing action. But it is going to be a weather dynamic race here around Zandvoort, which is something that I know I haven't had an opportunity to see yet. And some quite quick drivers on the grid to put that weather to the test. Currently, 1 second is the gap from 1st to 10th. and things are quite tight from that point down as well. 1.5 seconds is the gap from 1st to 19th on this grid. Things are about to get very, very spicy here in the Netherlands.
Now, I'm very excited about that. 13th to 16th. There's not even a tenth between those drivers. There's about 4/100ths of a second.
And it appears the auto-retired car and the timing desync that we're accustomed to in qualifying has cost Fraser that final lap, which, as we can see, is very unfortunate. But that is going to be your grid. It is Nigel on pole position with Alex Bitto there on the front row next to him in second, Fraser in third, and the Dutchman in fourth. That's Remco van Putten for Red Bull today. Freeware in fifth, Shendra in sixth, Hume and Sever in seventh. That's almost a tongue twister, with Yoda in eighth, Henners in ninth, and Mert Kopteget in 10th position, reserving in the McLaren today. Unless that's Mito, of course. But Burke in 11th position, Arda in 12th, Jack S 13th, Astrade in 14th, Money in 15th position with Burke Khan in 16th, Wavy in 17th, XCXP in 18th with Emre rounding out this grid for Williams. I can't wait to see that rain come down here in this session, Unicorn.
Yeah, we've already seen a few thrills and spills in the dry there in qualifying, so... And there it is, wet weather that we've been so patiently waiting for. So I'm sure the wait will now be worth it as we just wait for everyone to load in to the race for the formation lap to kick us off here.
Grab your friends, your family, your brothers, your sisters, the whole shebang. Get them in here for this race because it is about to be a wet Zandvoort race start leading into some dry weather, which can only mean one thing, and you and I have seen it before, Unicorn: confusion. When is the right time going to be to come off of those wet tires? That's going to be a huge question here in this race. Safety cars are also a very, very real threat here in these ones.
Yeah, it's not like China. There isn't quite as much runoff on some of these corners as in China. It's sort of a mix. It's not got the close walls of Vietnam the whole way around, but at the same time, not every corner has a huge runoff area. We saw Henry just now in the Mercedes. He slid out of turn 7 and he lost a sizable chunk of his front wing to the wall. It could have quite easily been a loss of a wheel and a suspension failure, which would inevitably have caused a safety car at that point of the track. So if we see that here, then obviously that could come into play. One.
Alex Bitto struggling on the intermediate compound tires. He's pulled off. He's dropped back into the 5th position slot in this formation lap. Could be a sneaky attempt to get a little bit more temperature in his tires than these guys ahead. Who knows? But you can see right now on board with that Ferrari, things are quite wet, as Lando Norris put it last season. Things are very wet here around Zandvoort.
Yeah, one thing that the wet weather does at the start of a race is it eliminates that tyre choice, unless of course it's, you know, whether do you want intermediates or full wets. But there's the predicted pit stop strategy, and that's suggesting intermediates, either a 1-stop or a 2-stop for the green wall tyres. But I do believe the weather report here is that it might clear up towards the end of the race. So whether there is, like we said, that decision, do I come off of the track, get myself onto the dry compound tyre, and even if that is, you know, a definite, which lap is the one to pit for? Because even once the rain stops, that track does not dry instantly. It's not a football pitch. So the drivers, they've got to be not only on top of their, you know, lap times, but also their tyre strategy as well here this evening.
Well, we are going to have this race start as all these drivers approach the grid now. Nigel on pole position. Alex Bitto, the winner of this race in Tier 1 yesterday, looking to fight with him. And, of course, it's Fraser and the Dutchman of Remco van Putten in the mix there on the second row. And this grid is looking very tight based on qualifying as we have these lights now just getting ready to come on. We hear those engines. It's 3, 4, 5 red lights here, and I've lost any kind of user interface. We have a jump start or a delayed start in the rear of this grid right now. I'm not entirely sure who that is. That looks like it is MRL. And it looks like there was some kind of bug here. We are now away on this grid. It's Nigel getting a very slow start on this wet weather. Alex Bitto wheel to wheel with him into turn 1 at all already.
There's a Williams pointing the wrong way out of turn 1. That's Yoda, I think. He's come together with a Red Bull, and there's the McLaren of Burke off as well. Out of turn 1, and the safety car is already coming out here at Zandvoort.
Well, the rain never disappoints. Safety car here on lap 1 already, and I think a couple of these drivers are going to be fortunate because, well, for starters, Remco Van Puten's made up a position on Fraser into 3rd. We'll take a look at the position changes as now everyone requiring to slow things down. Wavy has made up 8 slots here in this one, as has Burke up 6. Arda's a big winner here as well, up 4 slots. And the losers, Tillman Sever, Yoda, Burke, of course, the safety car going to give them a second crack with some wing changes and possible tire changes. So we'll see how things roll for them. But it's not going to be an easy task to make up 10, 10, and 8 positions respectively. You can see everybody's on these intermediates. Nobody's on these full wets, and things are extremely wet on circuit here. I don't know if Inters was the right call. Fraser struggling here trying to keep temperature in these tires right now. He may have taken off an end plate there into the wall.
Yeah, that start was a little bit confusing. I saw Tim and Seva as soon as the lights went out. Obviously, there was that sort of delayed start, as we've seen quite frequently in this new game. But as soon as the cars were underway, he took a lot of grass as soon as the race started. I don't know if the driver in front of him got a slow start, but he put at least 2 wheels out on the grass.
Oh, when there's a retirement, I'm not entirely sure what's happened. It looks like that is Wavy out in the middle of the circuit during the safety car just ahead of the pit lane, and there was some kind of incident causing him to retire in that AlphaTauri. And you hate to see it, but now I don't know what to think here. We have the predicted pit stop strategy coming through here on board with MRL in the pit lane, and we're getting an inter strategy suggestion here. So maybe the weather is going to well, stay damp enough for those intermediate compound tires, or maybe it just won't be worth switching when that rain is yet to come in.
Yeah, and even those in the pit lane, replacing wings, etc., they have gone for the intermediate tires again, so not quite full wet conditions. No need to see the blue tires, it would appear, but unfortunate for Wavy spinning out of that last turn. I know that it is possible to do in the dry if you take too much curb, so whether, you know, that kind of incident happened or whether there was collision in this wet.
Yeah, one thing to note here as well is there was 5 drivers pitting here, 6, excuse me, pitting. Jack S down in 13th, through down to Yoda in 18th position in that Williams, and all 6 of them are going to be looking to charge back through on a little bit fresher intermediate compound tires, fresh wing changes, of course, everyone wanting to keep their nose clean on that restart. Still, your race is being led by the Renault of Nigel, and it's Alex Bitto who is absolutely hungry for another race win around here, but I think more than both of them perhaps, it is your current 3rd place and final podium resting driver, that is Remco Van Puten in 3rd, who is very hungry to score a win around home here in that Red Bull, of course. So we'll see how things go for him. Qualifying not going the way he would have liked. He was there on the front row for a moment, but he has had to start this race in 4th. Doing good so far, though, getting ahead of Fraser in the Mercedes. Of course, Mercedes leading the constructors this season. These drivers currently ahead are going to want to stay there to ensure that that constructors tightens up further.
Yeah, and getting that position at the start, it might give him that confidence boost that he needs. He knows he can overtake down towards the first corner, which is tricky enough in the dry. Obviously, it's such a tight right-hander. But that extra confidence boost, knowing he can fight into that corner, might give him the edge if he can get a good restart here once the safety car pulls in. I think it might be out for one more lap. We haven't got the notification yet from race control that it's coming into the pits.
We'll get that shortly after that straight section there, leading into that hard right-hander, which I think we're going to see some interesting moves through here in this race. Given the wet weather, that's going to be a tricky turn for some of these drivers because it even catches a few out in the dry.
Yeah, one thing about that corner is that obviously at the end of a long straight, you are right, we are seeing the safety car come in, but you can't really fight too aggressively into that corner because of how the next corner is after it. If you go too hard into the right hander, you're going to be so slow, and if you take the wrong line to the right hander, you're going to be so slow through the left hander. So you've got to be a bit careful trying to go for moves in there, but like you said, I think we're going to see some interesting moves. Fraser, he's raring to go, almost running into the back of Remco Van Putten in that Red Bull, but it is Nigel who leads on the restart.
We have a beautiful helicopter shot here of this restart, and that's the Mercedes of Fraser getting cheeky wheel to wheel on the rears of that Red Bull, and now Nigel has taken off out of this banking section. We're going to jump on board with that Mercedes as he has a very clear view, or almost clear view. Remco Van Putten down the inside, down the outside, excuse me, of Alex Biddo, and it's Alex Biddo defending the Dutchman already here. Nigel maybe getting away a little slower than he would have liked, but it's Shenjay very close to the rear of that Mercedes on this restart, and you can just hear the rain coming down right now, coming through this first banking section on board with the AlphaTauri of Freeware right now. Behind them, it is Henners, Burke, Mert, Kopteget, and Astrodite into 10th position, and we have an exchange. It's Yoda getting ahead of Burke in the McLaren, and it looks like Emre is struggling in that Williams still, perhaps some kind of connection issue. It looks like he has disconnected, but things are still very tense up in this front end. Shenjay within half a second, and all of these drivers within super close proximity in these absolutely downpour conditions right now. The spray is absolutely monumental for these racers, and I don't know how they're able to make any kind of overtakes, but Jack S., as we say, having a look at Astrodite already here, and things are just tense and tight all over this grid right now on the restart, and it's what you love to see in these dynamic conditions.
Yeah, Freeware, he managed to get past Henners on that restart, but Arda, he had an issue out of turn 1. He's now dropped back down to 17th place in that Renault. His teammate, though, currently leading the race and holding on to first, but it's Alex Biddo who sets the fastest lap of the race so far, and he's getting ever closer.
There's a big incident. That is the Haas of Tillman Sever off just outside of the pit lane here. It looks like he's still going. He's trying to get that car back under control now. In that Haas, it looks like he's going to most definitely dive into the pit lane. We have a yellow flag up through Sector 3, but no safety car deployed as a result of the debris on circuit. It's still Freeware in this battle in 6th position. This time, though, Fraser is the opponent as Shenjay's made his way up into 4th position. Emre now back into the session. And this fight for podium positions is absolutely massive, and I can only see it getting even more intense as things begin to dry up here, and we have been told that we're going to see some dry weather. The question is when, and Fraser now having an issue off wide. Freeware, not enough traction on the exit to get that much of a launch ahead, but now Fraser still struggling. They're wheel-to-wheel coming down into this DRS straight. Of course, no DRS in this wet weather, but overtake being utilized by both of these racers down into the left-hander, or the right-hander.
Dropping 2 places on the restart. That's not what he wants. Now he's got his teammate Henners, the reserve driver right now, and Fraser, he's obviously feeling the pressure right now, not comfortable in these wet conditions around Zandvoort, it would appear, as he's now dropped down to 6th place, and he's coming into the pits. Is he going to go for full wets?
He's getting on dry tires, it would seem.
It's a very, very interesting decision.
So he's looking to go on hards until the end now. He's going to utilize this wet circuit to keep those hards maintained until things dry up to the point where he will have a very... Wow, that is a very bold strategy. I think that's what he's doing, and it could pay off. We'll see how it goes for him, but he's going to be coming out currently very far behind this grid in 16th position. Tillman, Sever, and Emre having some difficulties here in this one. But it's still Shenjay in 4th position. He is still ahead of Freeware now. Fraser out of the picture for them. Nigel leading this race. Things have stopped raining here in Zandvoort, or in the Netherlands, but I don't know. That was a super early call, but DRS has been enabled. So we saw the DRS get enabled last lap round. So that could have been his indicator to jump onto some dry tires, and we'll see what the front of this grid decides to do, because it looks like Nigel's already starting to struggle on these intermediate compound tires after running on them for 6 laps. So as the race leader, I don't know.
The spray's almost completely disappeared, and we are going to see these guys hop into the pits. Shenjay, though, looked like he was
Oh!
pretty short.
And Henners. Was that Henners? I don't know who that was. That looked like there was some kind of bug. Maybe it was a back marker there. I am entirely not sure what we saw on screen. It doesn't appear there was any cars, unless it was XTXP. I don't know who that was. There was a crash on screen for a moment there, but this pit lane is now absolutely jam-packed. There's going to be double stacking. And look at the difference in tires now. You have medium, softs, and hards to boot coming on these cars. And that is what we like to see. Major strategy difference, and Fraser now going into that early pit stop has benefited massively. He has come out into 6th position.
Yeah, the only problem for him is everyone ahead of him, they've opted for the faster tyres. They're on mediums, apart from Alex Biddo, who's opted for the soft compound tyres. So he's definitely going to have to stop again. I would expect those on the mediums to have to stop again as well at some point during this race. But, like you said, a lot of different strategies here, as Mert in the McLaren, he's opted for the hard tyres, just like Fraser has. Meanwhile, Astrolite behind him on fresh softs with DRS down into the tight right hand at the end of the DRS straight. Not going to go for a move there. But as he approaches the final couple of corners, we've got Alex Biddo up at the front. He's also on the soft compound tyres. DRS enabled up the inside of Nigel into the first corner. A little bit of contact between the two, but it is going to be the Ferrari getting out ahead in this race now. Nigel losing the lead for the first time this evening, as Astrolite also makes the move similarly around turn 1.
Now, a driver who's lost out in this confusion, I think, is Remco van Putten, because he's come in on these medium compound tires now, but he's lost almost 2.5 seconds to those two drivers ahead of him, of Alex Biddo and Nigel, and Shenjay has caught up with him as a result of this. Shenjay on these medium compound tires, he is going to be wanting to hunt down that Red Bull with everything he's got.
Speaking of Red Bulls, Jack S, he's just had an issue. Out of turn 1, it can't have been out of the pit lane, surely. He must have been carrying speed. So he's possibly overheated the tyres, but I think you can clip the inside curb there, and that can send you into a spin.
Now, right now, it's a battle for 13th position, and it's soon to be a train forming behind Burke, I think, because Money has caught up in that Alfa Romeo. Almost he's a second and a half behind, but it's Burke in that McLaren who's less than half a second, and he has Arda crawling up his gearbox right now. But it's Burke on these soft compound tires between two hard runners, and he needs to pull himself out of this and catch up and make up some time, because they're not going to last all day. Meanwhile, Hender's on the inside of the McLaren. That's Mert in P9 now with a very smooth move from the Mercedes into turn 1. And very glad we caught that here on the broadcast. That was nicely done from him. And now it's Money being overtaken by the other McLaren. That's Burke into 13th position, and it seems on cue, as I said, he needs to get on with it. He has. But Arda isn't waiting around for Money to recover from that overtake. He's looking to get some position as well in the Renault.
Just look at these gaps forming. Alex Biddo has already drawn out 1.6 seconds to Nigel behind him. Obviously, he's on the soft compound tyres compared to the mediums. But 1.7 seconds now. He's absolutely tearing away. Meanwhile, a little bit of a battle going on for third place. The cars aren't really close enough for overtaking at the moment, but Remco van Putten, Shenjay and Freeware, they've left Fraser behind. He's almost 8 seconds off of 5th place right now in that Mercedes, and he's got Astrodry on the softs behind him.
Yeah, there's a big speed difference right now in the tires we're seeing on circuit. The softs have so much pace, and we can see it here as Astrodite wheel to wheel down into turn 1 with Fraser. Fraser looking to defend. It's the racing point on the inside, and it looks clean so far, but Fraser with a decent exit. How's it going to go for him? Coming into this right-hander, leading through into the left-hander, banking. Oh, Astrodite, very nicely done from him in the racing point. Of course, those tires doing well for him right now, but they could betray him later on. He has to get as much of a gap as he can away from this Mercedes.
Yeah, Fraser with a couple of lockups there as well. That's not what he wanted. He's going to take those hards to the end. He can't be affording to have those tires start to flat spot, especially not after only 2 laps.
Yeah, and meanwhile, checking back in with Money, the Alfa Romeo, who was in 13th just a couple laps ago. He has now been overtaken by Burke, and we saw Arda looking at him as well. Arda has made that move into 14th position, as now there's small battles happening on circuit. We're waiting for gaps to drop down with the tire difference, and it's Money spinning out in that Alpha. He seems to have recovered okay. No terminal damage, of course, though he's missing that front left end plate, and it appears that as we were riding on board with him, that Commentators curse striking again, but it's Shenjay now in a battle with the Dutchman into turn 1. The Dutchman maintaining station there in 3rd. Shenjay having a look. It's now the Red Bull on the defense, and things are quite intense on the the front of this grid right now. You see Shenjay, Freeware has now made up within a second of him. Looks like he could be dropping off a bit, but right now it's all to play for this 3rd position between Remco Van Houten and Shenjay. And we love seeing battles like this unfold. Meanwhile, it's Burke who has caught up with Burke Khan.
Usually what we'd see is that a safety car would bunch everyone together, but what we've seen here is that the different tyre compounds everyone selected has sort of separated the grid out. One person to look out for, if Astrodite can catch the group of 4 drivers on the mediums ahead of him.
Well, the key thing here was with that safety car, we saw everybody on those intermediate compound tires remain out, and that safety car came at a very difficult position for a lot of drivers because they did not know what to do. Of course, they still had a little bit of wet running to go, and now things have dried up completely. A safety car would do very well to bunch up this field again. Of course, you'd hate to see a driver retire, but things have spaced themselves out because, of course, that assortment of double stacking, difference in tire compound and pace on those tires, and just the differential in pace to begin with between the racers on the grid. But we did see a 1.5 second gap from the rear of this grid. It's Burke now, DRS and overtake. Not a lot of overtake at his disposal. Looking at Burke in this fight down into turn 1, and it's just not close enough to pull the trigger at the moment. Meanwhile, Fraser has stayed with Astrodate quite well here. Astrodate on those softs, not able to pull out a solid gap to that Mercedes, and Henner's on the soft compound tires, the teammate to Fraser, is within a second and a half still. But things are closing up, and a train is starting to form between, of course, Remco Van Putten, Shenjay, and Freeware in that front of this grid. But it's Alex Bitto off ahead, 2.4 seconds ahead of Nigel. And things are starting to space themselves out here a third of this race through.
Yeah, Fraser's doing a good job here to stay on the back of Astrodite. Obviously, the softs do appear to have a lot more pace around Zandvoort here, but Fraser, he's not letting that racing point get too distant from him, as he's going to get DRS again down the start-finish straight on those hard-carbon tyres in the Mercedes, but they're still almost 10 seconds now away from the battle for 3rd. That's Freeware in 5th that they're going to be looking to hunt down. But if these two continue to battle, obviously right now, as a massive lockup from Astrodite into turn 3, that's going to cost him a little bit of time, but Fraser's just a little bit too far back to capitalise over that mistake. Meanwhile, Astrodite's teammate Burke Khan, he's under a little bit of pressure from the Haas of XTXP, as well as Burke in the McLaren on the soft tyres. He's looking at the inside of the Haas now. The fresh softs gonna give me a little bit more grip, but he's onto the grass and no contact between the two, but very, very close to being quite a big crash there, as Yoda as well, he's catching up to Murr in the other McLaren. DRS enabled, he's not going to go for a move into the tight right-hander at the end of that DRS straight.
Oh, he's on a very clear hunt here. We had the beautiful helicopter shot. We saw the amount of time he gained in the braking zone there into that right-hander, and he is just chomping at this gap right now in this Williams. He's going to have DRS overtake coming out of that banking, and it's going to be easy as you like for him. And he's on a serious comeback drive right now as he was taken out, dropping himself to the rear of this grid, and now he's made up a massive amount of positions. Let's take a look at where he is at. Yoda has to get into that P8 slot, and he'll be back where he began this race. Of course, Henners is next on his hit list, as it were. Meanwhile, Fraser, speaking of hit lists, Astrodite now has dropped off a little bit. Softs are starting to hurt him in comparison to the hards, I think.
Yeah, when pit stop starts come into play, Alex Bitto, he's 3 seconds ahead of Nigel, but it's nowhere near what he needs in terms of, a pit stop to keep him out in front. I don't even think he'd stay ahead of the likes of Astrobite and Fraser here right now, but obviously Astrobite, he's on the softs as well, so he's going to have to come into the pits sooner rather than later, whereas Fraser on these hards, I think he's going to try and keep him out to the end, which is going to be quite a tall order if he keeps locking out and has that tyre wear to deal with, but he has got DRS and he's got a very nice run down towards turn 1, and he's already passed before the corners begun. But again, another lockup from that Mercedes.
Yeah, those hard tires. It's going to be a really long haul to make those into the end, and we'll see if Fraser's able to do it. It could be that he comes in for some softs very late in this race to have a late surge through this grid. A lot of different tire strategies are on the table considering the wet start to this race, and everybody's starting on that intermediate compound tire. We could see a multi-use of softs here now because everyone's used 2 different tire compounds. And now there's a big cook out of the rear of the McLaren. That's Burke out of that first major banking. He's sparking up a yellow flag in Sector 1, and he's missing that front right end plate, and it appears we are catching all of the incidents for these guys through this Dutch Grand Prix. Very unfortunate for him.
Yeah, it looked like he was carrying a bit more speed on turn 3, but maybe just tried to turn a little bit too much to the left to try and get past this Shenche now. Looking at Remco Van Putten into turn 1. Remco Van Putten defending that line very, very nicely, but a little bit wide through the turn, and now the Alfa Romeo is still hot on the gearbox of that Red Bull. But a big lockup from Shenche. He's still carrying the speed he needs, but not too many overtaking opportunities that are really risk-free at all towards turn 7 here, and you can see him darting all over the back of the Red Bull, but nowhere for Shenche right now to pass as they approach the other DRS straight on this track, and this little battle here has led to Freeway. A big slide from Shenche. He's caught that nicely, but Freeway, like I just said, he's just sitting behind them. That DRS wing is open, and he's now gonna join the fun.
Oh, and Burke has come in that McLaren. He has retired the car for the McLaren squad. So now Emre, moving up into 17th position, will inherit that place. Very unfortunate to see him retire out of this one. He was on a charge on those softs. Unfortunately, that slip of the rear there, costing him that end plate, I think may have been the final nail in the coffin, as it were. Meanwhile, as you said, Freeware gaining on Shenche. Shenche not having the ability to make a move on Remco Van Putten just yet here.
And we're seeing a lot of lockups here this evening. This is going to be very, very punishing on these tires. If the drivers keep, braking a little bit too hard maybe on corner entry, and you can't be putting your tires under that much stress because they won't make it as far as you'd like. It's a consistent issue, and Fraser as well, he has got past Astrobite and is pulling out quite the gap to the racing point, so it does look like the soft tires now may be dropping off because Alex Biddo, he's being caught by Nigel as well. That gap was up to 3 seconds, now only 2.5 between the Ferrari and the Renault.
Things are very intense on this grid right now. Gaps are starting to form further down this midfield as we have Henners on these softs. Yoda's started to catch him on those mediums as well, and Henners is starting to close pace on Astrodate, so we could see a good battle there in the midfield brewing, but it's still this fight for podium position as Shenche still not close enough to pull the trigger on the Dutchman, Remco Van Putten in third. And we're seeing this battle unfold for a few laps now. Patience is a virtue, and I think these guys need to maintain battery, and Freeware is doing a fantastic job of that right now. He has over 80% in the tank for his battery. Remco Van Putten 60 something, give or take, and then it's Shenche there on these mediums with absolutely no battery reserve in comparison, so it's gonna be hurting him come crunch time.
Meanwhile, Henners, he becomes the first driver on those soft compound tires to dive into the pits, switch them out. He's gone for the mediums here. I don't know if you saw it, but the tire strategy recommendation popped up on the screen. It reckons that those soft compound tires can go to the end potentially from here, which is a good 16 laps, which seems a little bit optimistic.
I think that's very optimistic, and I think a driver that will be able to tell us just how optimistic that is more than likely going to be Alex Bitto leading this race on those tires. So I don't believe, well, he's on the softs now, but even if he were to switch on to another set of softs, which he has the ability to do so, I don't believe he will try to stretch those to the end. I think that if we see Alex Bitto come in soon, he'll jump onto some mediums. And a driver that we're going to have to pay attention to is Remco Van Putten, because he has come in for the soft compound tires. And that could spark a chain reaction through these drivers in 5th through into the lead of this race.
It looks to me like no one knows quite what the optimal strategy is, because Remco Van Putten didn't just come into the pit lane. He was faking it for a little bit. He had that little train. He had Shenji and Freewa behind him. He made it look like he was coming to the pits, and then he cooked the car to the left so it looked like he was, second guessing. And then at the last minute, he just avoided the pit wall and dove into the pits, which left Shenji and Freewa. They couldn't respond, so they're going another lap on the medium compound tires now. So, like you said, Remco Van Putten, is this going to be the overcut he's looking for? Or has he just caused himself to get undercut? But Shenji and Freewa, they're staying out at the moment as Alex Bitto comes in for mediums.
So Alex Bitto having that ability to get on softs, okay, but perhaps burning his softs in that qualifying, all 3 of them, not having a set to go on to. Remco Van Putten maybe using a little bit of strategy difference here. But Alex Bitto is on the mediums, and those will more than likely carry him through to the end of this race. The softs, however, are a completely different story. Now, if Remco Van Putten was to get a safety car, that would be a very, very good thing for him, because then he could put on, fresh mediums, depending on when it came out. The strategy difference is just monumental. I can't even pick a strategy that I want to commentate about. It's so many different options right now for these drivers in the top 5. Softs, another set of mediums, who knows, maybe a set of hards. It's up in the air. Meanwhile, Henner is very tight to the rear of Aphrodite on the fresh set of medium compound tires, looking to get back into the points.
Yeah, I think out of the front, Alex Bitto, he's the most informed on that soft versus mediums. He knows what the soft tires feel like. He's just done 10 or so laps on them, and if he doesn't think that they could go 16 laps, he may as well do what he just did, come in for mediums and take them to the end. He's going to do that with relative ease, as not only is Henner's hunting down Astrolite, but Astrolite's got Arda there in front of him on 12 lap old hards. So he's got to be mindful of the car ahead of him, and Henner's behind him as well.
Well, that car ahead of him is a serious saving grace, but he's going to overtake that DRS now that was keeping him from Henry, and Henry's looking at the inside of the Renault as well. What a move from him. Is he going to have the exit on the mediums compared to hards? Not yet, but you can see that he looked there for the inside, just not enough, well, rotation through there.
Well. That's going to let Henner's get the exit he needed, and a little bit very close, if not contact between the two, but Henner's has dispatched Ovada there, and now rejoin his hunt for Aphrodite ahead of him. Another lock up from the racing point. Henner's keeping it a lot cleaner through this section. He's going to get DRS now, and Aphrodite, like you said, last time he had a saving grace, this time not so much, as Henner's is the only car with DRS at the moment in striking distance. That's Shenji into the pits now. He's going for softs to the end. He's going to try and take those 14 laps. And he's kind of just behind Fraser on those hards. We saw him pit for.
Fraser doing solid right now, but it's going to be Shenji on his rear on these soft compound tires, and I think this may push Fraser into a position to pit now, because he's in 5th and he's going to start dropping to a lot of these fresher rubber running drivers behind him. And this may be the wake-up call. He needs to come into the box. But, of course, Nigel and Freeware are currently 1 and 2 here on this grid, yet to come off of those 14 lap, soon to be 15 lap old medium compound tires. We'll see what Nigel does.
One advantage he does have on those hard compound tires is that he can, as Shenji gets past him, he's done at the end of that second DRS straight there. But like I was saying, Fraser, he can go for the soft tires, but a a little bit later than those who were running on the medium compound tyres. And we've seen from Alex Bitter get off these soft compound tyres about 10 laps into them, whereas Shenja and Remco Van Putten, they've got to take them a little bit further. Freeware and Nigel, though, they're in a very good position to pit either this lap, the next, or the lap after that, and they should be able to comfortably take those soft compound tyres that they should probably go for to the end of this race, as Burke is the next one to come in for soft tyres.
Now Burke coming in has opened up Astrodite here to the DRS of Henry without any kind of safety. Astrodite following him for as much of a slipstream as he could get there as his teammate came into the pit lane. Now it's Burke onto those soft compound tires. We have Henners within half a second of Astrodite, now into that last points position, and he's looking for more.
Well further down, the good money up the inside of Jack S into the first corner. They're side by side on exit though. But it is money in the Alfa Romeo. He's now up into 15th place through the third turn there. As Nigel and Freeware both into the pit lane. And they're separated now by Shenjie. Yoda's hopped into the pits as well.
Shenjie with a good move there, getting that undercut on Freeware. Things have spaced themselves out quite a bit here, but it's Henners now still in that hunt.
Yeah, he hasn't been able to get past this racing fight for quite some time now. DRS, he's had it for a good few laps, and Astrodite hasn't got it anymore on the cars ahead of him. And Henners now, he's not only trying to get past that racing point, he's got Yoda behind him, fresh soft on the Williams. Up the inside Yoda goes, onto the DRS straight. They've both got it, but Yoda just carrying so much more exit speed down the straight, and he's already got the move done well before the tight right-hander.
Yeah, and this is bad news for the racing point of Astrodite now. Henry was one thing on the medium compound tires, but now he has Yoda on those softs that's going to be charging, and he's going to be climbing down that gap very, very fast.
And I think that's the Williams of Emre. He's off turn 3 exit. No damage on the Williams, but there he is. Henners now. He's into the pits for a fresh set of mediums and a new wing. That's going to cost him a lot of time. This XTXP comes into the pits as well, this time for softs though.
Meanwhile, Yoda hunting down Astrodite, still coming down the hill now. He's making up tenths at a time. We have the beautiful rear view shot from the racing point right now. We'll see when Yoda decides to pull the trigger. And Nigel is getting closer. There's Yoda. He's on the inside right now. He's made the move. He's ahead. They're wheel to wheel.
And he's made the move he made on Henry 1 lap ago. This time on Astrodite, as Remco Van Putten has passed Nigel for second place in this race, despite Nigel's fresher tyres. But Nigel might look to come back out of turn 3, but the Renault not getting the run he needs on that Red Bull.
Well, on any kind of pace that Nigel has in these softs right now, Remco is costing him to Alex Bitto ahead.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. Alex Bitto, his tyres are going to take him to the end very comfortably. He should have no troubles with tyre wear whatsoever, whereas Remco Van Putten especially, he's still got 10 laps to go on 6-lap-old softs. He's going to have to be very careful, and battling with Nigel is not what it was, as the Renault up the inside into the right-hand corner. Not getting the exit though. Like I was saying earlier, you can't really carry the exit speed, but up the inside into the right-hand corner now, and he's up into second place. A very unorthodox overtaking position from him, but that means he's lost the DRS now, and it's going to be Remco Van Putten charging down the inside into turn 1, and the Red Bull So a little bit of wheel banging between the two, but both still pointing in the right direction, still side by side as they come towards turn 3. A big lockup from the Red Bull, and that puts him in Shenjay's grasp, and Nigel getting out in second place.
Shenjay there was waiting for that move to go through for Nigel and Remco Van Putten. Van Putten on these older soft compound tires versus the drivers behind him is going to be looking to defend hard, as we know he can. He has been one of those drivers to put on the tire wear master classes, if you will, throughout some of these MRL races we've seen. But of course, Shenjay, very, very fast, and he's looking at the Dutchman, and those swerves that you see coming out of that Red Bull not going to be helping him at all here in this one as his tires begin to degrade. And it's Freeware in 5th position, holding behind Shenjay right now.
Yeah, now it's just a battle of who's got the better tire management versus who's also got the better tire strategy, because Remco Van Putten, he could have the strategy or the time management of a lifetime here. His tires are older though, 5 laps older than Nigel ahead of him there, so even with excellent time management there's not a lot you can do to combat it. But that lockup into turn 3 is not going to aid his quest to stay in the podium positions. While Freeware, he's on slightly fresher tyres. He's now looking to try and worm his way past Shenjay in that Alfa Romeo ahead of him.
Now, I know Shenjay and Freeware, they're teammates in MRL Tier 1, but they aren't teammates here in MRL Club Division, and who knows what we'll see come down with these two, as they love to battle, I'm sure, with no team orders coming between them. DRS now for the AlphaTauri driver. He doesn't have a major amount of space to move through right now with the Alfa Romeo ahead of him. So it's a battle of the Alphas, if you will. And right now, Shenjay 1.3 seconds off of Remco Van Putten. Just holding, you know, where he can, keeping Freeware at bay. You see now DRS again for the AlphaTauri. Looks like we could see the move here. Wheel to wheel now into turn 1. Around the outside is the AlphaTauri, but Shenjay on the brakes a little later. He holds the inside, and right now it's still wheel to wheel. Very tight battling here, and it's what we want to see. Oh, Freeware on the inside now. Oh, and there's a big incident. Looks like Freeware's come out wide there. And Shenjay's into the wall.
Shenjay suffered a lot of damage on that Alfa Romeo, whereas Freeware, he's got a little bit scot-free. Whereas Shenjay, both end plates missing, and maybe a little bit extra damage on the right-hand side of that front wing. He's missing a lot of that right-hand side, and that's Fraser now passing that slow-moving Alfa Romeo.
Well,
and I think there might have been contact between the pair of them.
There may have been, and of course we'll have to see the review from both drivers' POV, as all the drivers in MRL do record. They got to remember, this isn't CFR anymore, this is MRL, and there is very strict penalties that come along with it. MRL, of course, very strict on penalties, so Freeware and Shenjay need to remember that. Fighting like that isn't going to get the stewards on their good side even remotely. Fraser now into 5th position. Shenjay lost out majorly here, and it looks like things have spaced themselves out quite a bit here on this grid.
Yeah, Shenjay definitely had contact with Fraser there, because he lost even more front wing through that corner after the incident prior to that. So another thing we might have to, or the stewards might have to take a look at after this race here. For the Alfa Romeo, he's on the freshest tyres on the grid now, so he might be able to claim fastest lap here around Zandvoort.
Fastest lap definitely in play for him. He's in 10th position, so he will get that additional point. Of course, now having to make up a wild amount of traffic in order to get any more points from 10th. He currently has a second to go, making up on the Renault of Arda ahead in 9th position, and we'll watch him along as he's going to charge through this grid now. Very unfortunate that we saw MRL Freeware and MRL Shenjay come together there. It's not something that I've seen those two do in a league race before. Could have been a snap of oversteer or maybe some understeer coming out of that Alpha Tauri.
Yeah, I do know that Shenjay, just before the race, he was feeling with his setup. He wasn't too happy with his car yesterday, as he's looking at Arda now in that Renault. You can just see the pace that those fresh softs have gifted him in the penultimate corner there. But he was saying that yesterday he was feeling a little bit of understeer, or a little bit too much that he'd like in that Alpha. But maybe that was the result of the setup change, but yeah, super unfortunate for him, as he's going to have to carve his way through the grid again. 5 laps to go, and he's currently sitting in 9th place, as that's a yellow flag. That's a Red Bull. That's Jack S reversing his way off the track to clear. I think that's Henner's there.
Jenny now on those fresh soft compound tires. He's already dispatched the Renault of Arda. He's going to be looking for fastest lap, I imagine, on his first full lap on those tires. And of course, Astrolite in that Racing Point is going to be under major threat from him. 1.5 seconds is the current gap, and it's coming down very, very quick.
Yeah, he's going to want to claim as many points as possible here, and Astrolite, his next easiest target with 11 lap old mediums. Yoda ahead of him though, 6 lap old softs. He's not going to have the insane pace advantage that he does have over the Racing Point, as Mert in the McLaren comes into the pit lane, and Shenjie does achieve fastest lap. And now around the outside of turn 1, looking for the switchback on exit on Astrolite. Not getting it here though. Going to stay behind through turn 2. Again, looking to do the same through turn 3. But again, to the same level of success. Now up to 8th place though, after overtaking Mert in the pit lane. See the pace he's got on those fresh tyres versus those mediums. We should, provided he gets a good exit here, those tyres providing additional traction with DRS as well. He might be able to get past on this straight, but he's not carrying as much speed as he needs. Straight's not really long enough if you don't get a very good exit out of that left-hander. But as they run down towards turn 1, I'm sure we will see a change of positions, and we might not even have to wait till then. A much better exit up the inside of the final corner, and that's Shenjie into 7th place now. He's 7.7 seconds with 3 laps to go. He's behind Yoda, who's also on soft tyres, and that could be one of the last overtakes we see in this race given the lack of time. Although Mert on fresh softs, he's now chasing the Renault of Arda.
It's absolutely wild how the tire strategy is shaken up here through this race. Of course, all of these racers starting on intermediate compound tires. It was a wet race start. Now we're back to sunny driving with not too many clouds. Everything's extremely dry, and you can see so many different tire strategies at play right now. Of course, the McLaren in 10th, that's Mert hunting down Arda on the freshest tires on grid. And Shenjie is now taking a 3-second time penalty, which is going to play well for Astrolite should he be clean of penalties right now, because all he needs to do is maintain 3 seconds to the end, and he'll still get that P7.
Yeah, Shenjie is going to be kicking himself at the end of this race if that costs him that 7th place.
Yeah, I say all he's got to do, but it's going to be a monumental challenge for the Racing Point regardless on those mediums.
Yeah, Shenjie is absolutely flying, but if he does somehow catch Yoda, it's going to mean very little. 7 laps was a very tall order, 7 seconds, sorry, but 9 seconds, or 10 seconds as it is actually.
And it's Freeware. Freeware in this fight now. He's caught up with Remco Van Putten in this battle, less than half a second between them. They're about to enter through into the penultimate lap of this race as Alex Biddle crosses the line onto 35. But it's the Dutchman, home Grand Prix for him versus the AlphaTauri. And it's going to be DRS for the German.
Emery just heading off as well. He got damaged front wing. But like you said, it's up at the front where the battle's happening. Freeware just putting his nose up the inside of Remco Van Putten, but he's not going to be able to get the move done through turn 1 or turn 2. As they approach turn 3, they're around the outside very, very late on the brakes on the AlphaTauri. Now they're side by side coming out of there. just
Remco
leaving
Van
us with.
Putten, one of the best defenders in the business that I've ever seen, and I think you can probably agree with me considering some of the masterclasses he's put on through this season so far, but it's freeware on the inside. Remco Van Putten giving him only as much space as required here and planting that car in such a specific way that he's making freeware work so hard for this. Oh, and freeware's going to cost himself some time there. He's taken a little bit of that inside curb and he's rolled that AlphaTauri off of it. Of course, DRS and overtake in full swing now. You can see Remco Van Putten a little bit less battery in the tank right now, and he isn't going to have DRS coming down into this banking. It's going to be very, very tough for the Dutchman to defend from the German this time around because he is much, much closer coming out through here. DRS overtake now, full swing for him. It's the German looking to the inside. How's the Dutchman going to defend here? Wheel to wheel from the helicopter. It's the AlphaTauri leading through into turn one. What's the Dutchman going to do about it? Oh, and it is freeware into third position here on the final lap of this race, and it's Alex Biddle once again leading here around Zandvoort in the Ferrari. He's coming through sector 2 right now, and it's looking like this is going to be another race win for him. Back to back Zandvoort wins for the Spaniard in the Scarlet Red Ferrari.
Yeah, you can just see Remco Van Putten, like you said, he's an excellent defender, but there's a point where your tyres just aren't going to be able to match your own personal skill, and those 5-lap differences on those soft tyres are just costing him too much time. To that AlphaTauri, there's only so much he could have done with DRS going down into turn 1. Also, Mert did pass Arda in the fresh softs, but it is Alex Biddle who claims first place yet again here at Zandvoort. He's followed by Nigel across the line in P2 in the Renault. And it is going to be freeway crossing the line in third place, leading Remco Van Putten, who comes home in fourth. And Fraser, a little bit of an alternative strategy in that Mercedes. He comes home in fifth place on those hard tyres, which he did take 30 laps here around the Netherlands track. Yoda.
So if you are still with us, as all of these drivers begin to cross this checkered flag, I have some great news for you. We are about to do it all over again for Tier 2 racing action. Of course, we had to reschedule that race from yesterday. And so Tier 2 is going to be kicking off within the next 20 minutes. As this race finishes up, we're going to get things dialed in for you. We're going to see if we can't get Unicorn's audio levels up a bit, because I'm sure all of you would enjoy that very, very much, as would I. But of course, your race winner here, Alex Biddle, the Spaniard, 2 days in a row now around Zandvoort. He's won it, of course, in Tier 1 yesterday. Now once again here for MRL Club Division. So grab the popcorn, get those bathroom breaks in as we get things going for the racing action. But we'll go through this real quick. That's Alex Biddle with the race win. And congratulations to him.
Yeah, an astonishing race. I think he really nailed the strategy going for those softs when everyone else up at the front went for the mediums. It gave him the information that he needed, those softs at the end. They didn't really last as long as the game predicted they would. So he had that advantage going on to the mediums, and he just took them very easily to the finish line, where he was, in the end, a large amount of time ahead of Nigel, who had a 3-second time penalty as well. So
yeah, that's right. As Alex Biddle, your race winner here, Nigel taking second position. They flip positions from where they began on the front row of this grid, with Freeware coming in third from fifth position. Great drive from him. I'm sure he'll be happy with that one. And it is Remco Van Putten in fourth, who started in fourth, so he holds station there. And it's Fraser from third back to fifth to round out your top 5 racers after this Dutch Grand Prix. For the MRL Club Division, it's Yoda in 6th, Shenjay 7th, Astrodite in 8th, with Mert Kopteget in 9th, Arda in 10th, with a great drive from him. He comes in 10th from 12th, and Astrodite from 14th to 8th, and we see a big chunk of drivers moving up positions here as there was some chaos at the beginning of this race with the wet weather. Of course, Burke Khan in the Racing Point, 11th position. Henners in 12th. XTXP, 13th position here for the Haas from 18th, mind you. Great drive from him. As I said, a lot of drivers making up solid positions here. Tillman Sever has dropped back, and it was just a great race overall from everybody. 19 racers taken to the circuit today. Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties earlier on in this one. And we'll be looking to get you Tier 2 in just a few minutes' time without as many errors. Any last words for the stream, Unicorn, before we we take a quick break here and get things ahead of Tier 2 ready to go?
I just want to draw attention to Yoda as well. He had an excellent recovery drive after spinning turn 1, so I just think that's worth noting because he still gained positions by the end of the race. But other than that, the racing we just saw, the strategy that provided, very, very exciting stuff. So I look forward to seeing the same track in action in just a few moments when we go live with Tier 2.